So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us on a Saturday afternoon. My name is Vaayu, and I'll be the moderator for this session. All right, today on this engineering session, we'll be talking more about the career prospects, education pathways, and more about the life of the engineer. Our goal today is to understand more about engineering and what it really means to be an engineer, which we will be hearing from our amazing panel of speakers. So here's a format to give you an idea of what to expect before I introduce the speakers to you. After a brief introduction of the panelists, I'll kick off the conversation, asking questions that draw out some of the high-level themes and trends we should be thinking about. And after that, we'll open up to the floor to give you an opportunity to ask specific questions that you've been thinking about to help navigate the upcoming opportunities and challenges for you to become an engineer. The questions will be collected by our team throughout the discussion, and we will be asked towards the end of the session. Okay, all right. Without further ado, let me start with our first speaker today, Ms. Kireth Kaur. So Ms. Kireth was a wireline field engineer with Schlumberger and is currently a senior petroleum engineer in Petronas, working on international operations. She earned her degree in Petroleum Engineering from University Technology Malaysia, UTM, and was part of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, SPE. Next, we have Ms. Syahirah Musa, who is currently a drilling engineer in Sea Hibiscus Sdn Bhd. Also being a drilling engineer at Petronas previously, Ms. Syahirah earned her Bachelor's of Science in Petroleum Engineering from the University of Tulsa, Oklahoma, US, under the full sponsorship of Petronas. And finally, we have Mr. Naresh Rajah here. Mr. Naresh has previously worked as an aerospace technician with the sister company of Rolls-Royce and in Pratt & Whitney, Singapore. He completed his diploma in mechanical from University of Technology Malaysia also, and earned his bachelor's degree in aircraft engineering from UniKL. And currently, he is doing master's in aerospace engineering at the University of Sheffield, UK. Okay, hello everyone. So without wasting any time further, I will move to the very first question. So engineering is indeed a very broad subject, as there are plenty of branches of career paths underlying it. So I'll open the first question to all the panelists here. What made you to take up this engineering pathway, specifically as a career? And perhaps we can start off with Mr. Naresh.
Well, I would say my fascinations towards engineering stem from early childhood, because my house is located very near to the airport. So always seeing the aircraft fly in and out kind of gives me the idea of, wanting to work with aircraft. So obviously my first choice was to be a pilot, but because I have vision problems, so I opted to do engineering instead. And I find that being in the line of engineering fulfills, in terms of being in aircraft line. So it gives me the satisfaction of working, because when you work with your passion and you get paid for that, so it's really something.
That's interesting. Ms. Syahirah?
Okay, for myself, I actually did not decide on taking the engineering at very early age. I wanted to be a doctor before, until I was in the science school, and it seems like I'm not suitable for a biology student, not really good at it, and hence I feel like I should take up engineering. And also after, seeing myself as being more outgoing, I feel like engineering is the field for me at that time. Yep.
Okay. And Ms. Kireth?
So I was exposed to petroleum engineering at an early age, because my dad worked in the oil and gas industry as well. So I was exposed to it, but I didn't know if I wanted to do it or not. And then later on, I decided to take it up. So that's why I decided to do petroleum engineering, take up as my degree, as well as I wanted to, travel, and oil and gas had a lot of that, offshore and stuff like that. So yeah, so that was the main reason.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on. So talking about pathways after SPM, there are a lot of pre-options you can choose from to become an engineer, and there are a lot of engineering courses as well. So how do you know which one to pick from, and I believe that Miss Kireth has an experience doing matriculations, and Miss Syahirah did her IB International Baccalaureate in College Mara Banting. So perhaps you can share more about how was your previous studies there.
Syahirah, you want to go first? Or?
I think you can go first, no problem.
Okay, so basically in matriculation, so after SPM, I applied for matriculation in school and I received the matriculation offer, which is a pre-U thing for 10 months. And in there, we can choose either you want to go in biology or engineering. So there's two. So basically there you can decide what you want to do. So that was it. So during matriculation studies, we had a lot of people from the industry coming in. Like we had people, because engineering, we had people from oil and gas industry, for example, Petronas, other companies coming in, exposing us to them. So we had that exposure in matriculation. What do you want to pursue after pre-U? So we were exposed to all of that in matriculation. So I think that is one of the good things that I received in matriculation. We were exposed to all of the engineering before we picked which one we would like to do. So yeah, from there I picked petroleum engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
So early exposure.
All right.
Exposure.
For myself, yeah. Okay, for myself, okay, I'm actually grateful. I was in a science boarding school in KL. We were actually approached by a few companies coming by and selecting students to be part of the scholarship program. And for myself, it was Petronas. And actually, I had to select the degree that I wanted to do, even at that stage, because once you receive the scholarship offer, it has already been showing there, what degree that you will be offering. So I was offered petroleum engineering, chemical and mechanical, but I chose petroleum engineering because at that point of time, like oil price was actually really good. And after asking like few professionals, my dad's friends, people like that, they actually recommend me to take petroleum because it's actually the core business of Petronas. So it's actually a higher chances for you to get a scholarship at that point of time. So I think it's a good, it's a good research at that time. If you actually, when you try to get a scholarship, you do a research of the company on what the core business is. So you have a high chances to get the scholarship if you are looking into, getting a full scholarship for your studies. And then, so once I entered the pre-U program, the International Baccalaureate, I actually had to stick to petroleum engineering, and we already started looking at universities at that point of time. So yeah, that was my story. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, there's a follow-up question for that, Ms. Syahirah. How did you secure a scholarship at Petronas? Like, how was the process, and how was the overall stages to get the scholarship?
Okay, so at that time, Petronas actually came to our school, and they actually already pointed out that they're going to take the top 30 students for application. And then out of these 30 application, we do not know how much will be accepted later, because they will be based, the top 30 will be based on your SPM trial results. And the result for your final application process is only after you get your SPM result, will be based on that. So, and then after you get your application has been accepted, they actually get you through to go to a 3 days interview program in UTP. So it's a 3 days interview program. You see, like you need to present, you need to do work in a group. So basically, they are really looking at the candidates that whether you have like all the characteristic that they're looking for an employee, already at that stage. So you need to know how to present yourself, how to sell yourself in an interview, and then they see how you work with other people, which is actually, I think, is more critical when you are hiring people, apart from just the academic result, because once you are at the working level, at the working industry, all these soft skills are actually really valuable. Yep.
Thank
So
you.
that's how the process is lah for Petronas Scholarship. I'm not sure about others, but I think for JPA, I actually went for a JPA interview as well, but it's just a one day process. It's just an interview and an exam, so it's not as thorough as the Petronas one.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So, Mr. Naresh, talking about being an aerospace engineer, I believe there are also a lot of branches. Like there are a lot of works divided in aerospace engineering. So, what do you really do as an aerospace engineer before?
Actually, for example, in aerospace line, there's people when we talk about aerospace or aircraft in general, the first thing that comes into people's mind, it would be being a pilot. So a lot of people, when we say aircraft, the first profession that comes to mind is being a pilot. Second, I think, would be being a steward. So actually, there's a lot of engineering professions that can be choose in terms of aircraft engineering line. Like, for example, you can become a licensed aircraft engineer. But in order for you to do that, you don't necessarily have to have a degree per se. So, for example, once you finish your paper, like SPM paper, you can enroll in certain institutions like APR in Subang or in UniKLMIAT. There's a program for that as well. So once you finish up those papers, there's like 15 papers, I think. So once you've taken up those 15 papers, did with the theory papers, and then you have to complete about 2 to 5 years of practical experience with, say, for example, Asia or MAS. And once you have done all the papers submit, and then you'll get a license. So the license will be something like a red book, like our passport. So this license will indicate that you are a freshly graduated licensed aircraft engineer. And from then onwards, you get to specialize on certain aircrafts, like different aircrafts have different type ratings, they call it. So you get to specialize on that. So the whole process is quite tedious, but experience-wise, you will learn a lot. There's a lot of knowledge. You would know there will be a point where you can just take a bolt, and then you'll know the size and which one fits where. So it will be a very, I would say, a fulfilling experience.
Thank you. So we're talking about pathways of the SPM to become aerospace engineer. So the one thing that comes to our mind is, of course, the cost of education. So is it really expensive to study aerospace engineering? And if so, is there any cheaper options like scholarship to pursue it?
Well, if you were to intend to study, like, for example, more straight path, like taking a degree or a master's, so those are usually being covered within like those institutions. Like you can get PTPTN for that sort of education level. But for example, like I mentioned just now, if you want to take the pathway of becoming an licensed aircraft engineer, it's much more expensive, I would say. When I was doing my degree, the cost was roughly about 80 to 120K in ringgit. So, it is expensive, and there are a lot of opportunities in terms of financial support that's being offered. Like, for example, MARA do offer scholarships for students to study in APR. And for non-Burmese, they can take, like, for example, companies do offer, like Asia and MAS do offer, if you study under their academy, like Asia Academy, they do offer you, like for example, a financial support. But in once you finish your training and practical training, you'll be bonded with them for, I think, for about 10 years. So I would say it's good. Because you do get a financial support to do your studies as well as get a secure job. If you study with those academies.
All right. Thank you. So next we have an open-ended question. So what skill sets do you think is important for today's job scopes in engineering, other than the stuffs you learn in class to develop during like your free time or semester break? So anyone can start for that. Miss Kireth?
Okay, so basically, I can speak for petroleum engineering in particular. I think firstly, you need to, like, for example, for me, after university, I applied for Slumberjay and I got a job overseas. So I think the first skill set you need to have is courage, because going straight from university to overseas and then working in the field as a field engineer, you need to have courage, determination. Okay, you need to be, you need to have will. You need to have a good will to do that, as well as, because when working overseas plus working in the field as a petroleum engineer, as a field engineer, you would need a lot of determination in you. So yeah, for me, determination, courage, as well as the knowledge, of course. But at the end of the day, that matters a lot. Mm-hmm.
All right. Ms. Syahirah, Mr. Naresh, do you have anything to add to that?
I can go first, Naresh. Is it okay? Okay. For myself, I think one skill that a lot of people should have is trying to be very adaptive to a new environment. Because as for me, when I joined Petronas as a drilling engineer, it was really not so many women in the department as a drilling engineer, because a lot of women feel like going offshore is not really that comfortable, because once you go to the field, to offshore, there are actually more men than women. You can see sometimes it can just be you can be the only woman at the rig. So you need to somehow adapt with the environment, not just like push it away or make it as an obstacle for you to be a good engineer there. Just try to adapt, and then make yourself comfortable, and you can still be a good engineer there, regardless of your gender, sex, or anything else. So yeah, that's one to add. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's an interesting point to note, that working has nothing to do with gender and all you need is passion. And Mr. Naresh, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most important skill set at this age would be the ability to code. So I would say learn how to do coding, programming, get yourself involved in those sort of environment, because nowadays a lot of works are being done in automation. So like it or not, you do have to have to have this sort of computer knowledge. I mean, even this pandemic has already teach us that when it comes to like working online, a lot of people struggle. I can see that a lot of people, especially a lot of old people, they either reluctant or don't want to learn, because for them it's a tedious work. So I would suggest that those people who want to get enrolled in any sort of engineering background, learn how to code. It can be start simple, Java program or HTML, C++, but make sure have the passion to code, because eventually, once the world moves towards the digital age, coding will be a very valuable asset.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. So
I
as Ms.
agree with
Syahirah
that
was...
also. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So as Ms. Syahirah was talking about female in harsh environment, working environment in engineering, I think I guess that Ms. Kireth also has something to say about that. Like, how was it working as a female in petroleum engineering? Was there anything difficult or was it balanced?
In the field, it was difficult. I wouldn't say difficult, but I would say that it's not easy, because like what Syahirah said, at one point when you go offshore, you are the only female on the rig or on the platform. So at some point you will definitely be the only female in the room or something like that. So I think what we as female engineers need to do is that we need to be first courageous, and like I said just now, what Syahirah said, adaptive, but as well as we need to know that we can do this. We need to know that we are worthy to be there, and we can be good female engineers as well. It can be in the field, or like now I'm in the office. It's the same. You are the only female in the room. You are the only female in meetings. So voice out, speak out. It's fine. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be shy. You don't have to, I think you have to speak up. Yeah, as a female engineer, probably even more. To be visible. Okay. The word is to be visible. You need to be visible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So as you're speaking, you can talk about the pros and cons of being a petroleum engineer. Like, you have an experience working for such a long time. So you can speak about that.
The pros and cons of being a petroleum engineer. So the pros is, of course, for me, that I was fortunate enough that I could travel around. I was sent to a lot of trainings overseas for the company that I worked with. So they sent me for a lot of training. So I learned a lot, culture, not only knowledge, but the cultures, met a lot of people. So that is the pro of working as a petroleum engineer in the oil and gas industry. The cons, I don't think there are any as of now. So yeah.
Okay. I'd like to pass this question to Mr. Naresh and Ms. Syahirah as well. So,
Mr. Naresh, want to go first?
No, Syahirah, I think you can go first.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so my position right now is a drilling engineer. It's actually a subset of petroleum engineer. Okay, when you do petroleum engineering in the college, you get to choose afterward which branch that you want to focus on. So I actually choose drilling engineer. So drilling engineering is actually a bit more focused on designing an oil or water well. It's an upstream part of oil and gas where you actually extract, you design a well for it to be able to come out from the formation below the earth, inside the earth, come out to the surface, and after that go to the midstream and downstream, process it, and somehow become your petrol, right? The final product of petroleum. So when I choose drilling engineering, it's actually already very focused. So the pros there, I think, is I get really technical on it. You don't really go over to other set of expertise. You get to focus on drilling only, and then it's actually even until now, I think it's the market value for that position is still quite good. Like, I still get a job from different company. I already jumped twice, so there's a demand for it still, despite the oil price going down. So I think that's the pros of being a drilling engineer. But the cons, I would say that I will have no other choice. If I don't want to do a drilling engineering after this, it's actually very limited for me to go to other department, because after 10 years, I get so concentrated, so focused on that subject. I'm not sure where I would go afterward. It's not really a broad work scope. So yeah, that would be the
means
cons.
Even if you've done BSc in petroleum engineering, but then you have worked 10 years in drilling engineering, so that means you can't really shift to other
yeah, I would say that. Yeah, but it's actually an advantage for me to have a petroleum engineering background, because we work a lot with people like Kireth. So I actually get a very good understanding of what they are doing, because I did my bachelor's degree in that. But however, if I want to go and jump into her expertise, it would be very hard. It would be like starting from zero again. Yeah. Right. So I think that's the cons of it.
Okay. And Mr. Naresh?
In terms of aircraft and aerospace line, the pro would be, I guess, if you work with like, for example, these companies, like flying companies, Mars, Asia, you get cheap tickets. I'm talking about 90% discount. So yeah, you can literally just walk into the airport, buy a ticket, fly off. So that's the con. That's the pro. Pay is good. What else? And then definitely, I mean, if, for example, training wise, sometimes you do get to send to overseas for training. So you get that experience. Being an aerospace engineer, being in an aerospace line also teach you a lot of things that, like, for example, you do have another career, like, apart from being an aerospace engineer in aerospace line. If you study aerospace, but you can become a non-destructive inspector, a non-destructive testing inspector, where you perform testing on the aerospace components. So you get to see, like, some people, they like to work rigidly, sitting in a room, staring at a lot of, because there's a lot of multiple methods to do those sort of testing. So you can venture out. If, for example, after maybe 10, 20 years, you feel like your body is tired, you want to venture out, you can go up to this section to take up. But it's another, how to say, it's our own initiative to get that expertise while you're working. You can work in tandem with that, but if you want to, like, for example, once 10 years and only then you want to take up that course, it's going to be hard. So yeah, and then another thing is that it's always cool to tell people what line you are. I always have a lot of questions being asked to me, especially after a lot of fiasco involving the aircraft industries for the past decade. I wouldn't say which company or what incident, but that's been a lot. So we get to tell people, and also I always get these questions from my friends about the excuse me, about for example, the SpaceX program, the Mars program, how feasible it is, and stuff like that. So it's good to tell people, explain, share with them your knowledge. So, and when you are confident, you're working with all this kind of background, so it's nice to have that. So I would say that's the pro. The con is something similar to what Ms. Syahirah mentioned earlier. The field is very niche. It's very specific. So if you want to, like, jump other than aerospace line, for example, to other parts of mechanical engineering, it's really hard. I would say it's something equals to starting from zero. So yeah, that's one thing. And another thing is, if the aircraft don't fly, the company is doing bad, job is at risk. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very insightful. So the next question is more to like a Sherry. So like all of you have experiences working in different countries. Like Miss Kireth has been in offshore, Abu Dhabi, India, when working with Schlumberger, and Miss Syahirah studied in the US, while Mr. Naresh worked in Singapore and currently studying in the UK. So could you share like your experience working and studying abroad? Little. We're studying with Miss Kireth.
Okay. I worked abroad for a few years before joining Petronas. So I think the experience would be before joining Petronas and at the start of my career, I gained a lot of experience because working abroad, the style, the culture, you gain more knowledge. Of course, you meet more people. You go for trainings in different places. So basically, I think the cons of working abroad is it's a lot. Yeah. So that is a good start to my career. And then coming back later on, working in Petronas and as a reservoir engineer, that brought a lot of knowledge, and it could help in my career later on. It helped a lot. So I think starting my career abroad and working overseas has helped me a lot. And also towards the adaptability of working after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
That's me.
Thank you. And Mr. Naresh?
So, I mean, overseas is really nice. Working in Singapore exposes a working culture that is not shared in Malaysia. Everything is fast. They really want things to be done really fast. So sometimes it's a bit of headache to work with them. But it's fun in a sense that it's like, I mean, okay, honestly, I would say it's like working in a market. There's a lot of sounds coming from all directions heading towards you. Sometimes you don't feel like what you should do. So I would say I will tell them that this is how things have to do. This is how things are going to be. So if you want to rush me up, and if things don't go according to plan, because there'll be issues when, if you, for example, if the parts come for servicing, the aircraft blades, turbine blades, or whatever, if it comes for servicing, and then if you rush them, they are what we call a turnaround time. There's a there's a lot of days involved. So if you want to, sometimes people like to shorten them so that you can finish up the job ahead in time, so that you can gear up for another order. If you were to do that, and if the customer send back the parts, you are in big trouble. So we always do get this sort of, they will tell us subtly, saying that try to shorten up the time if it's possible. I mean, if the work is going good and you shorten up the time, it's good. But if you want to rush and do that, so it's not a very good and safe culture. So that's what I observed in my 2-3 years working in Singapore. So when I'm in the UK, so when you talk with our professors and we have our lab work, the culture is totally different, whereby they do prioritize your mental health a lot. So if you give them, especially now because of the COVID and with the pandemic forces us to stay inside, so being able to go out is a bit of a cathartic, I would say. So sometimes when you pressure people too much, they do get the sense of like being in a scenario where you don't like having this sort of pressure. So citing mental health, they would advise you to work on your own pace. I guess which is that is quite good. And UK being the aerospace hub of the world, it's good to learn about their working cultures, because apparently it works for them. So I would say this is the different kind of adventure that I encounter in my studying time as well as working time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Syahirah?
Okay, so as for me, because of my overseas experience is more on my student life there, actually, what I realized is that comparing Malaysian education to the US education, the big difference is that the Malaysian education, we are so focused on academic and exam oriented compared to as in the US. Like it's actually they really actually put such an importance on your presentation skill, your your teamwork, doing your project, your final project, and then how you actually sell yourself to those companies that are actually headhunting. So when we were there, I see that that's the big difference between the Malaysian students and the American students. They are really good at selling themselves. They are really good at, of course, they are, in terms of communication, is their first language. English is their first language. And the Malaysians are so focused on the exam. We actually really excel in terms of results. But when it comes to presentation, you can see the struggle. So this is somehow I see, which is what makes a big difference in the working industry later on as well. Because coming from an American university, I find it less difficult to work later on, because I'm already exposed to all these requirement to be able to work with other people really well. You communicate, your communication skill is really important when you are working. And then you know how to present and sell yourself during job interviews, things like that, because your academic is just going to help you to get the job interview, and the job interview will just on how you bring yourself out. that's like the critical point when you want to jump into the working industry later on. So that's like one advantage of the American education, which they really emphasize on. And in Malaysia we see this less, especially during my time about 10 years ago. But now I am seeing like a lot more initiative from our students nowadays, like because you have all these Googles and gadgets to help you find out on how uh, what's the requirement in the job interview, things like that. So I see the gap is less now, but yeah, that is something that I experienced in the States lah. Yep.
So it's more like a tough environment working and studying there, which is good for you.
Yeah, and the first 2 years I would say like I just struggle in terms of communication and presenting, but you get used to it. I actually work part-time there in the gym, in the university gym, so that actually improve my communication skill, and it actually really works during my working industry later on. It seems like nothing at that time. I never thought it will help me in the future, but it actually helped you. So never take an experience as something invaluable. Experience is really something that can help you later on.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next question is about career. So we all will have our time after graduation finding a good company to start our career with, as there are like an ocean of companies to choose from. So how would you know which company is a good company to join after graduation? Like, is there any characteristics or something that you find in a company before joining? So it's an open-ended question. Anyone can answer.
So maybe I can take this I can explain. So basically in oil and gas industry, we have two, right? So we have service providers and we have operators. So service providers are like companies, like I'll give you a few names like Schlumberger, Halliburton, Baker. Those are service providers. And then we have operators like Petronas, Shell, Hibiscus, which is Syahirah and all. So in my opinion, starting your career with a service provider like Schlumberger and Schlumberger and Halliburton will put you out there. You will work in the field. You will know what's happening. And later on, if you would like to join an operator company like Shell or Petronas, that experience that you have gained in a service provider will really help you. And when you are young, it's of course better for you to work in a service provider because they tend to send you places, you tend to travel more, the work is longer hours. So I feel starting your career with a service provider is a good opportunity. As for petroleum engineers, it's a good opportunity. And then you can later on jump later in your careers. So that's what I think.
So looking for a service provider.
Service provider.
All right. Mr. Naresh and Ms. Syahirah, do you have anything to add to that?
Can I add a little bit? Because, okay, so once I came back from the States, of course, because being a Petronas scholar, I really don't have any choice to actually jump into different company. However, the offer actually came quite late, after graduation. So I already start my job hunting. And I actually got offer with Schlumberger company, but also in drilling. My interest is already there in drilling. However, because I also agree with Miss Kireth, like it's actually a very good idea to start with a service provider. You get really hands-on, you get really technical, rather than just go over to a client. But I guess it's not really applicable for me because once I accept the scholarship at Petronas, it's actually a convertible loan. You have to service the company for 10 years. Yeah, inside the convertible loan. So that's actually how my future in Petronas, takes in lah. I of course work with Petronas instead of the Schlumberger one. But yes, I agree. If you have a choice, like if you're a petroleum engineer, you can get a service provider experience at the early age. It's actually really good. Yeah.
Thank you. And Mr. Nash, do you have anything to add to that?
It's similar to what Miss Syahirah and Miss Kireth were saying. Even in aviation aerospace line, when you start, you will start with hands-on. You definitely start with hands-on. Unless you're studying for piloting. If you're going for the engineering background, you definitely will be starting with hands-on. So you will start with, I would say, very basic rudimentary tasks. They will ask you to learn how to do marshalling. Marshalling, where you see people welcoming the aircraft inside and hangar. So those sort of things. How to say? Like I did my internship in JB. So in one of those private jet companies. So we had to give a wash to the aircraft. We have to clean the sewage tanks, strip the entire interior of the aircraft. Like, yeah, sometimes you'll be like, and sometimes when you have to do we call it the post and pre-flight checking. So for example, if the aircraft is landing middle of the night, early in the morning, you have to rush, go in, make sure that because you have to be standing there, make sure there's no accidents. We read in reports where aircraft wing brushed with each other, hitting the hangars door. So we don't want that to happen. So all these things they will be taught during your internship time. And when you venture into working line, the working experience, this sort of experience, even this is more intense because you no longer will be handling small aircraft. So you'll be doing marshallings for like jumbo aircrafts and stuff like that. So it will be intimidating. It will be intimidating. People will have the challenge. They will feel it's how long it will take for me to go up the ladders. When will I get to do a proper engineering job? But I think it teaches you to be patient, have passion, like being more responsible, time management wise. So I think I would say this is a good experience.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next question, I think it is an important one. So it's asking about how is the employment currently during this pandemic for all the sectors you're associated with currently? Is it if so, is it a short-term thing because of the pandemic itself, or would it affect long-term for the career wise? So whoever want to start it with, Ms. Kireth, perhaps?
I think with regards to the oil and gas industry, we do not have much issue. Probably Naresh can speak on the employment side, but oil and gas industry, we are okay. I can speak for Petronas. As far as I know, they are still employing petroleum engineers. There are still, you can go on LinkedIn and you can see all these Petronas websites. They are putting it out if you would like to apply. So what I can see is they are still employing petroleum engineers. They're still drilling engineers as well. I've seen ads on LinkedIn. So I don't think with regards to the oil and gas industry, there's any issue when it comes to employment right now. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Naresh, is it the same for aerospace engineering?
No, definitely not. Right now, pandemic time, planes are not flying. A lot of people are getting retrenched. This is the time where I would say, in the past, as far as I can tell, in the past 50, 60 years, this could be the worst time for aviation industry, aerospace as a whole. But this is just for aircraft below atmosphere. But if you want to mention stuffs about things going above atmosphere, the working line the working opportunities for those who want to be involved in the exact aerospace industry are still widely open. In 2019, I went to a conference called Icon Space, organized by UKM and the Angkasa agency in Malaysia. So through that, you learn there's a lot of satellites being built, cube satellites being built by the universities in our countries. So you can choose to work with those sort of bodies, universities, to get knowledge and jobs pertaining to that. But as I mentioned earlier, like as an aerospace line, you do have an option to venture out. Like for example, like I mentioned, NDT. So you may not have a job working on the aircraft exactly, but you have a job working with the servicing parts. Like aircraft do have their checks every few thousand hours. So this some of the companies are taking the options to do those checks at this sort of time when the aircraft is not flying, because no, it's much more convenient for them. So once you have the checks and everything's been done, you can fly. So those sort of lines are still open. So I wouldn't say it's totally gloomy days for those who wish to take on the aviation line. But yeah, the challenge is definitely there. Right now, especially in the pandemic, is definitely there. But we can see those countries like China and the US is progressing. They are flying, borders are being opened. So I would say we have good days ahead of us.
Thank you. And Ms. Syahirah, do you have anything to say, or are you agreeing with Ms. Kireth on that?
Okay, maybe a little bit different, because coming from a smaller company compared to Petronas, my company right now has actually freezed the employment because of the pandemic, and also they cannot afford, of course, to retrench, because but however it looks like they are freezing all the employment, because we are also a smaller company compared to Petronas, such a big organization. But talking about oil and gas as a whole, I would say that the humanity still need energy from the conventional source, but from petroleum. I don't, of course, there are a lot of speculation saying that all this green energy is coming in, will replace, but I don't think it can replace it 100% yet in the near future. Maybe about 15 years after this. So yeah, it looks like the European countries are actually venturing a lot into this green energy, but I would say that the earth still needs this conventional energy. So yeah, they will still be marketable to do petroleum or oil and gas degree related. Yep.
Okay.
There's one thing I would like to add, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you guys can forget about piloting. So pilot right now, it's a really, I would say, really not to go for jobs. So it's nothing against the pilots though. I mean, being a pilot, your only job is to fly an aircraft, right? You really can't deviate from that. So right now, if those people, I would say the industry, because we have our aviation bodies in the world. So they are forecasting that for the aviation industry and aviation industry to go back to pre-pandemic level, it would take about maybe 2024, 2025 to have, given that the Delta variant did not cause much more mutation after this. If let's say, so 2024 is, I would say, 2-3 years from now, and that's the earliest time where they predict. And we know those figures are optimistic. So there are a lot of pilots right now, either they are being on unpaid leave or they are being retrenched. And those people have already experienced. So in the event the aviation industry returns to its glorious days, those people would definitely apply first. So I'm not discouraging those people, those students, to not take pilot. I would say that right now piloting would be something that you should take into account your third or your fourth options. So make sure your first, second option is something else.
And is this also true for aerospace engineering and aircraft engineering, or is this just specifically for piloting?
It does correlate, but I would say pilot are much more affected. Aerospace line, you can work on it because, like I said, there are a lot of research being conducted. There always being R&D section, both in Malaysia and overseas, who want to improve how to. I mean, we are related with the petroleum line as well. We are inversely related, I would say. We would try to design an aircraft in order to reduce as much as fuel consumption as possible. So yeah, I think petroleum engineers hate us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we're reaching an hour mark, I'll be asking my last question before opening to the floor. So my last question is about the opportunities for advancement in this occupation. So Miss Kireth is now like a senior petroleum engineer, coming out from a petroleum engineer. So how would you advance after this?
So basically in Petronas, as a senior petroleum engineer, and I specifically, I'm focusing on reservoir engineering. So reservoir engineering is basically you look for the oil that later Syahirah and her team will go and drill, which is before the drilling engineers go in. So as a senior petroleum engineer, after this, my plan, we have technical exams in Petronas. So we have to go through all the technical exams. After going through all the technical exams and of course, passing through it, and then we can decide that we want to go in the managerial position or we would like to stay in technical for the rest of our career. And that would be as a specialist. So I would be a specialist petroleum reservoir engineer or a specialist petroleum engineer. So I would advise the executives or the petroleum engineers what they should do and not. So there are two branches after this. I can choose to go to management or stay in technical for the rest of my career. And that entirely depends on me, what I will decide. So it depends from individual to individual. So different individuals will, of course, it depends on what are you passionate about at the end of the day.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. And Miss Syahirah?
It's actually quite the same path as what Miss Kireth mentioned just now. So you actually get to choose later on whether you want to go managerial or specialist, technical specialist. But I would say that in a smaller company, there's actually less structure in the investment process, because big organization, they have a better training program, things like that. So it's actually a very good platform for people who wants to start. They are very structured training, things like that. But in a smaller company, it's a little bit different. But the path is still the same, managerial or technical specialist, like that. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Naresh?
I mean, it's something what Ms. Kireth has mentioned as well. It depends on the individual preferences, whether you want to still maintain in the engineering line or you want to jump up the ladder going to the management part. So if you want to jump to management part, a lot of companies will require you to have a certain amount of years. Like some of my lecturers during my degree days, they are consultants in mass after like 20, 30 years. So if you want to avoid, you want to take fast track, having a master's would be a good idea. A master's in management. So there are some involved like a master's called aviation management, if I'm not mistaken. So some can persuade that in order to go up the ladder. But eventually, at the end of the day, it all points out to your interests, what they want to be. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for everyone. I think my questions are done. So coming up from the floor, there are around eight questions from them. And the first question is directed to Ms. Kireth and Ms. Syahirah. Okay, what are the technical skills that fresh graduates need to have in order to step in the field? Maybe SolidWorks software or something else that we as a fresh grad need to know to be for me to become a petroleum engineer. So
okay, so I'll take this first.
Yeah,
okay.
No problem.
Okay, so basically, before stepping out in the field as a field engineer, you basically don't really need anything beforehand, because once you join the company, that has employed you, whichever company that has employed you, they will provide you training before you start going into the field. So before I started being a field engineer for real, I went for a 4-month training, which then after I was qualified in the training, and then only I could go to the field. So basically the company that you join will send you for trainings. So you don't need anything pre in university. Of course, you need your degree. Other than that, you don't really need anything else, because the companies that you join will actually provide you with whatever they need from you. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and then on top of that, I believe that in any engineering degree, you have some sort of like a basic software, subject, right? Like for myself, we did a VBA program already during college time. But once you enter the enter a company, if they require you to master a software, they will send you for a training. So there's no really actually a solid work software skill that you need beforehand, especially to the field. Like as a drilling engineer, you go to the field, I don't even spend time on my laptop. My time was full of, going to the up and down the rig floor, things like that. Yeah, you really need to learn hands-on at that time. So no software that, especially at the beginning. Yep.
Okay. And the next question is that Miss Kireth mentioned she was sent to many places offshore. Can you share where have you been for work and training, and give us a glimpse of how you represented not just the company but the country too?
Okay, wow. So basically, I was sent to Abu Dhabi for training by Schlumberger for 4 months that I mentioned just now. And then after, they will send you wherever they wish to send you. So I was sent to Abu Dhabi, but my colleagues, some were sent to Paris. And this was when the oil price was at $100 per barrel. So some were sent to Paris, some were sent to Egypt. There were so many schools around the world. So I was sent to Abu Dhabi. And then after that, my location is also decided by the company, was in India, and I was sent to Mumbai. And then as a female, I could not go offshore in Mumbai. It was not allowed. Females are not allowed to go offshore in Mumbai. So then they decided to send me to an onshore position in Gujarat, which is called Baroda. It's a small town. So that is where I was sent after that. And then I was there for the remaining days. Yeah. So basically Abu Dhabi, Mumbai, Gujarat. And how I represented, what was the
country?
Not
the
just
country.
the company, but the country too.
There are many Malaysians. There are many Malaysians that was in my training school. So I guess, and you will be surprised, there were there were 3 Malaysians with me in Baroda, in Gujarat. So it's actually a small town, but I was there with another 2 Malaysian girls. So it wasn't very weird. So I think I'm very proud that we Malaysians, especially, and both of them were female engineers, we Malaysians are like out there. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
One thing to add, Vaayu, I think you'll be surprised how many Malaysians are out there in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
Actually, because like Malaysia, we are quite matured in terms of developing our petroleum industry in 1980s. So if you go to Abu Dhabi or United Arab Emirates, even in Saudi Arabia, you will see a lot of Malaysians in their oil and gas companies.
Yes.
So that's something to be proud of.
And
they will know Malaysian.
Correct. And they look up, and they actually purposefully employ Malaysians to work for them. Yeah. So we are good in the oil and gas.
There's a lot of opportunities there for us.
Yes, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have to add, I had an interesting experience when I reached UK. When I came out of the plane, I was in Heathrow. So when I came out of the plane, I was walking out towards the gate. So it was the arrival hall, and then I came across these 2 aunties. They were talking in Manglish. So I was like, I was thinking, am I still in KLIA or already reached Heathrow? So there's a bit of confusion there. So I need to check my phone. I turn on my Google Maps to confirm that, oh, I was in UK, because the aunties, both of the aunties were definitely Malaysians. You know how they speak with the la, the way they speak English and all. So yeah, I mean, I had a really good time reminiscing that, and come to Sheffield, seems we do have a lot of Malaysians here as well. So yeah, like what Ms. Syahirah said, Malaysians are all around the world. You throw a stone, chances are you might hit a Malaysian.
Okay, thank you very much. And moving on to the next question, someone asked about the experience. Which one do you prefer, working on site versus working in the company? You can start with Mr. Naresh on that.
I mean, my experience wise, we never actually went out. Like we didn't have like on-site working, I would say, like off-site working. So most of my works are only on-site. So didn't have much experience working off-site. Yeah, I mean, maybe those days where we have we have testing engineers, where once we have completed all the checks in an aircraft, you will follow the pilot when they have when they make those sort of tests. The company that I went for internship did that, but it was before my years. So unfortunately, I didn't have that experience. So I guess maybe Kireth and Syahirah has more experience in that line.
All right. So, and Miss Kireth, which one would you prefer?
I think we need both. So you need the on-site first, get the experience, and then you can go to the office later on. Prefer-wise, I think there's no, I like both of them. So, but professionally, you actually need both, on-site and in office later on, because then you can use your knowledge on-site, in office.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, a little bit different. Before, when I just entered Petronas, I actually really want to be a field supervisor. I wanted to be a drilling supervisor because I feel like I work better when I'm at an isolated area. You get really focused on your work, not distracted. And then I really like going to the field because I feel like I learn more and things like that. And actually, as a drilling engineer, you can actually advance to a senior drilling supervisor and then drilling superintendent. So there's a path for that, like for you to stick to going to the field until few more years before you retire. However, after I got married, I got kids, I feel like my preference has changed a little bit. So after judgment, I feel like I need to spend more time with my kids as well. So that's why I decided to stick in the office. But actually, I don't really like the office politics. I really like going to the field. If I'm given a choice, like I might, just stay in the field. But yeah, that's a decision that you need to make throughout your life, right? So
fair enough. True. All right. Yep. Thank you. So moving on to the fourth question. What is the experience like working offshore, being a woman? How can one equip themselves in fitting into the environment? I think this is towards Miss Kireth.
Mm-hmm. So I was offshore in KK. So I worked with the operations with Petronas for 5 years. So basically we had to go offshore very often in KK. So I think what do we need is, as a female engineer, you need to know that you need to know your craft. So like just say you're a petroleum engineer, you're going offshore. What's the reason? Like I used to go offshore so after drilling, we have to go and unload the well. So basically we need to go offshore. You need to be equipped with your knowledge, know what you are doing so well that nobody can step on you. And you need to be strong. You need to be, I think, a little bit strict, because that worked for me, being a little bit strict and being a little bit like headstrong, so that I would not be stepped over and they would listen to me. Because sometimes when you go offshore as a female engineer, they don't really take you seriously. So I needed to know my craft, know my thing, and be very strong and basically, yeah. So you need to know your stuff. I think that's everywhere. You need to know your stuff so that people will take you seriously at the end of the day. And as a female engineer, you need to know your stuff 100 times more.
Yeah. Correct.
100 times more than the male engineers.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's sad but true.
Sadly, that's sad but true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a question missed out in the chat box previously, that a person asks us that they have aircraft maintenance engineer license, CAT B2 and CAT A1 with CAAM and CAT B2 with EASA UK, if Mr. Naresh understands that. I also have more than 5 years experience in the industry. I would like to know, is the requirement to fulfill is the requirement is fulfilled to study master related to aerospace engineering? Will I be able to enroll in board of engineers in Malaysia with my experience and qualification?
I mean, yeah, the qualification mentioned was actually the papers that I mentioned as a licensed aircraft engineer. So CAT A, CAT is CAT A is mechanical, CAT B is B1 is actually mechanical, B2 is avionics. So CAT A, CAT B is just a differential in terms of what you learn and everything. So I think the person I already I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'll just mention again for the crowd. So in order for you to get registered in the board of engineers in Malaysia, you need to have a degree or a master's, a minimum or a degree, because you'll need to register once you finish your school. So once you graduated, I think sometimes your school will do it for you. Like, I mean, for me, because I did my degree in engineering technology, so I was registered with the Board of Technologists, Malaysia Board of Technologists. So it's different. So there's like if you want to be enrolled with the Board of Engineers, your line must be like they say it's purely engineering, like what they mentioned. Like for me, it's more towards being a technologist. So it's different. But if you do want to get registered, you need a papers, unfortunately. Yeah.
Thank you. So moving on to the fifth question, which is again about petroleum engineering. So a person asked, what is the future of petroleum engineering? I really like the energy industry, but not sure if petroleum will still be relevant in the future. The world is also prioritizing renewable energy more. How will this affect a career in petroleum engineering? Are oil companies going to keep hiring? What is the future of Malaysian oil and gas? There's a lot of questions in one there.
Yes. So if I can start. So basically, Petronas is already transitioning into clean energy. So we have departments set up for all that, and they are already looking into it. So basically, it's not the end for petroleum engineers when it comes to oil and gas, but yes, they are already looking into transitioning into clean energy, and we would, as petroleum engineers, transition to clean energy in the future as well. But as of now, we don't really need that, but we are already looking at it. So I don't think there is a threat, because oil and gas companies like Shell also are already looking into clean energy. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's energy. So I don't think it makes any difference when it comes to that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Ms. Syahirah, do you have anything to add to that, or do you fully agree with Ms. Kireth?
I fully agree with what Ms. Kireth said just now.
Okay, thank you. And number 6 is, what is the salary range like as a fresh graduate? And is it fitting for the job scope? How is the salary progression like? I didn't mention if it's petroleum or aerospace, so I guess we can answer for both. Yes, yeah. So can I start with Ms. Syahirah?
Okay, as for me, I started with Petronas, right? So it's actually quite good at that time as compared to other engineering sectors, I guess, because I started with a 4K salary, and I was comparing also with my other friends, and 4K is actually quite good for fresh grad salary at that time. I'm not sure about now, but that was in 2011. Yep.
And how is the salary progression like?
Okay. Well, for Petronas, I would say that their progress is actually very structured. They have a salary structured program. As you have a number of years, that you get actually an increment almost every year. And also there's bonus for on top of that. Malaysia being a GLC, they give bonus to their employees. And then of course at one point I feel like I need to progress in other company, and hence I decided to jump to a different company after 6 years. I actually went into a supplier company, Sumitomo Corporation. If you guys have heard, Sumitomo is actually a very big conglomerate company in Japan. They have a business in Malaysia as a supplier for casing and tubing. So I worked there as a supplier, coming from a client, I became a technical sales. And my clients are actually my old colleagues. But however, it's still a jump of my salary. It's actually more than half of my salary at that time when I quit. And after 2 years, I got an offer from one of my clients from Hibiscus, and hence why I am now with Hibiscus, being a client again. And that's actually also how my salary progressed. And I would say if I stay in Petronas, I would not be having the same salary. But of course, my benefits, my bonuses are different, because Petronas is a GLC company, so they give you more perks compared to other private companies other companies. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Naresh?
Well, I mentioned there's two different areas of expertise in aviation line. So if you intend to pursue the line of an licensed aircraft engineer, the salary structure is, I would say it's different, because like I mentioned, you have to start low. So most people will not be able to finish those practical exam within the stipulated time. So for example, they would have taken the papers, but they would start working while doing their practical exam. So your starting salary is definitely low. I would say 1,500, 1,008. So yeah, definitely stay with your parents at that time. And then once you finish your practical exam, your salary will jump. And I would say jump as in from 1,008, 1,005, you'll probably get maybe 6, 7K once you finish. That's without any sort of typewriting, any sort of specializing with an aircraft. So for each aircraft that you specialize, for example, you see those aircraft, the small, big, large, jumbo jet. So with each aircraft that you specialize, you get additional allowances, I would say, but those are fixed allowance. And the thing is, if the company is sponsoring you with those sort of specialization, the typewritings, when you jump to another company, you have to start fresh. So this is how the way the company makes to make sure you stay loyal with them. So in order for you to actually get like good perks, so a lot of people will stay in a long time in certain companies, so that their salary structure is high. So once you jump, you can demand higher. Like for example, my lecturers, when we spoke with my lecturers in Unikiao Mian, their salary was like almost 25K when they were working in mass. So when they come to the academic background, I would imagine it's higher. So yeah, definitely you can see 5 figures in your lifetime, provided that you put on the work there, but not so fast. It won't be immediately. It's not that once you graduate this year, next year we'll be seeing, you'll be, scouring with Lambo and everything. There's no such thing. You have to start small. You have to be humble. That's how life will teach you. There's no shortcut.
All right. Thank you. As time is in the essence, we only have 5 more minutes and we have 3 more questions. So we'll try to skim through the question as fast as we could. So the next question is on Charigali. What are the criteria for a subcontractor to work with Charigali, and where do I register?
Petronas Charigali, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, should be. So there is you can go on LinkedIn. There are websites you can register there. You can apply there. Also, we have the Petronas websites for you to apply. So just Google Petronas job openings, and it will come out, and then you can go in the Petronas website, and then you can go and apply for a job with Petronas, and you will get a specific number like ID, and they will get back to you.
Okay, thank you. There's two more reflection type of questions. So the first one is, if you could turn back time, what would you say to your past self? Maybe Miss Kireth can start there.
I would, okay, so if I could turn back time, I think I would have done everything exactly like I did, which is joined a service company first, and then join a client company. So I don't think I would have changed any of it. I think it was fine. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Naresh?
Nothing much.
Sorry, the question was what?
If you could turn back time, what would you say to your past self?
Has to be career related, is it?
I think so. I think so.
Okay. I mean, since I knew about what sort of career options I have after I took my diploma. So I won't say my diploma was long. Certainly had a lot of good times those days. But like, for example, people want to know the options as early as possible, in their life. So I was a bit of, I would say that I was a bit of sad because I didn't know the options of having those licensed aircraft route back when I was 17, 18. So yeah, definitely would be good to know that. So in these days now we have Google, so information is available all the time. So just Google in the scope of what sort of options we have, branches we have. Like for example, when we study chemical engineering, and then people will be thinking, oh, I can be a chemist, or I can be a petroleum engineer. But there's branches within the petroleum engineering. There are branches within the aerospace line. So those we can study niche of those branches. Have those information available with ourselves. So this will help us with options of having a clear understanding of what we want to do once we decide what to study.
Okay.
So I would say that I would tell myself to investigate more once I finish my SPM, for example.
So think more before choosing my career.
Yeah, just like, for example, we can't be mainstream anymore. There's no mechanical engineering line. You'll be only mechanical line. It would be vast, I would say.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Syahirah?
Since my path is already quite there when after I got my SPM, I don't feel like I have the right to say anything. I'm so fortunate. Yeah.
Okay.
At that time. Yeah. Of course, maybe during my students years, I feel like there's this one year that I really almost messed up my results. And that is actually a down point during my student life. But thankfully I get through it and, get to be able at where I am now.
Okay, thank you. And the last question from the floor is towards Ms. Syahirah and Ms. Kireth. Both of you are in a male-dominated career. If you could redo it, would you still go into the same career path?
Yes.
Like, do you regret it?
Yes, I would still.
Yeah.
I would not
yes,
change anything. Yeah.
Correct. Same with me. There's one point, of course, that I feel like I choose the wrong one. Like at one point, I feel like, oh, why did not I choose geoscience? Because there are more ladies there. There are more lady bosses who understand you when you take maternity leave, things like that. But I just want to be honest here. But being in a male-dominated can be challenging, but it gives you a different value as an employee. So don't take it as something as a showstopper. Just go through it. That's what life is. Don't be feel low about it. Yeah. I actually want more ladies in my department. we can actually be good engineers. We are so organized.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So as we are approaching our end of the session, I would like to ask for like a final advice that you would give for others who want to set off in a similar direction as yours. So we can start off again with Miss Kireth.
All right. So my final advice would be, of course, know what you want to do. Think before applying. Once you have applied, or before that, even speak to people. Like, for example, all these careers day and go and meet people and speak to people. Ask many questions as you want, and do not ever think that any question is a stupid question. So just ask anything. Make sure you know what you are doing and what you're getting yourself into. And then once you've gotten yourself into it, then it's just make the best out of it. Make the best out of everything. But before getting into it, make sure you know what you're doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Kireth. Mr. Naresh?
One advice I would give: reduce sleep. Do not sleep more than 6 hours a day. If possibly even less, it's better.
Okay, that means you have to be more productive in that terms,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, okay. And Miss Syahirah?
I agree with both. Of course, don't waste time, even though I feel like back then I was really wasting my time. But yeah, so one thing that I think both of them have in touch is networking. Networking is really, really vital. That's how I actually got my 2 jobs previously. You have to know people, and this is a stepping stone that you're already doing. You attend a career fair, things like this, and then you talk to professionals. That's actually already a good initiative from all of them here. And so networking helps you to get positions in companies, because you cannot rely just on submitting a resume and then do nothing about it. But if you know someone there, it actually helps. So be nice to people, no matter who they are. You don't know when they're going to be on top of you, be your boss or anything. So yeah, that would be my advice.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. I think that's all from me. So I'd like to thank Mr. Naresh, Ms. Kireth, and Ms. Syahirah for setting aside some time in your tight schedule to share your experience with us. And I hope everyone listening to us today have learned a thing or two. And I wish everyone the best in the journey to pursue the career of your choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are honored actually being invited.
Yes.